Stellen Sie sich vor, alles, was wir über Jesus, eine der berühmtesten Figuren der Geschichte, wissen, bergen noch mehr faszinierende Geheimnisse.
Imagine an ancient artifact, surrounded by secrets so deep that not even modern science can completely unravel it. The Shroud of Turin, a piece of linen that apparently depicts the image of a crucified man, has been the subject of debate and speculation for centuries. But what really is this mysterious relic? Was it tangible proof of the miracle of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, or an elaborate deception created to deceive the faithful? New discoveries have come to light, casting a disturbing light on this controversy and leaving even the most skeptical people in a state of perplexity. Have you ever wondered how such a detailed image could appear on an old fabric without the help of any modern technology? In 1978, a group of scientists, led by a skeptical-minded photographer and raised in a secular environment, ventured into the task of unraveling this enigma. Initially, he was just there to capture images without any expectation that his life would be transformed. But as the investigation progressed, something strange and inexplicable began to emerge. The team spent more than 2 years planning rigorous testing, and in October of that year, they dedicated 120 hours of uninterrupted time to studying the shroud. What they discovered was not only surprising but also disturbing. The image appeared to have been formed by a flash of light, so intense that no medieval technology could have replicated it. A natural phenomenon or something beyond our understanding. To date, no one has been able to recreate the image of the shroud using known methods, leaving scientists perplexed and the mystery thicker than ever. John Jackson, the man who fell in love with the shroud as a teenager, continues to explore its origins and meaning today. What he and his team found, defying all rational explanations, is something that still eludes science and leaves a question hanging in the air. What really happened in that piece of tissue? We may never know, but the mystery of the Shroud of Turin persists, inviting all of us to question, explore, and, who knows, believe in the inexplicable. Despite decades of intense study and countless theories, the Shroud of Turin remains an unsolved enigma. To this day, scientists around the world pore over the data collected in the historic 1978 investigation, trying to figure out what exactly happened on that piece of linen. The Vatican, aware of the importance of this mystery, declared that these data are the only ones officially accepted and that new analyses will only be allowed if they are to preserve the fabric, thus maintaining the aura of mystery around the shroud. And then the question arises, why prevent further testing? What else could be revealed or perhaps hidden? Carbon dating carried out in 1988 should have ended the discussion, suggesting that the shroud is a 10th century creation. However, more recent discoveries have shaken that conclusion, leading many researchers to reconsider what once seemed definitive. What if this dating is wrong? The implications would be profound, reigniting the debate and making the mystery even more impenetrable. But there is one thing that no one can ignore: the vast amount of scientific data collected in 1978. These results are a treasure trove for those seeking to understand the shroud, but unfortunately, they remain beyond the reach of most. However, for believers, faith in Christ's sacrifice and resurrection does not depend on physically touching the shroud. True belief resides in the heart, in the ability to confess and accept Christ as Savior, without the need for tangible proof. After all, as they say, blessed are those who believe without seeing, and so the shroud remains, shrouded in mystery and faith, a symbol of something that transcends human understanding. From the first investigation in 1969 to the age of the Internet, the Shroud of Turin has become an object of global fascination. Researchers continue to challenge and reinterpret theories about its origin, sometimes discovering intriguing details hidden in the image. Some of these hypotheses are convincing, based on rigorous science, while others seem like mere speculation, the result of a desire to find explanations where there may not be any. One of the most provocative theories has been proposed by Nicholas Allen, who suggests that the shroud could have been created by a medieval photographer. According to him, a light-sensitive emulsion was applied to the tissue, and a room-sized darkroom would have exposed the image for a long period. Imagine such meticulous and time-consuming work, carried out under the intense sun, in an attempt to capture something that would defy time. Allen even suggests that a third exposure was necessary to create the famous facial image, but here a new mystery arises. If such a technique really existed, where are the other examples of this art? And even more intriguing, why hasn't history kept memories of such an extraordinary talent? Allen argues that the shroud is the result of 3 separate exhibits, but without concrete proof or similar examples, his theory remains just that, a theory. With each new hypothesis, the Shroud of Turin seems to become enveloped in increasingly dense layers of mystery, defying any attempt to decipher it completely. Who or what could have created such an image? And more importantly, why? While these questions remain unanswered, the shroud continues to fascinate and confuse, an enigma that spans the centuries, leaving a trail of doubt and wonder in its wake. Nicholas Allen, while studying the Shroud of Turin, identified a spherical aberration in the facial image that defies even modern techniques. If the precision of this detail is already impressive today, imagine how surprising it is to think that it could have been captured by a medieval photographer. How would something like this be possible in a time without technological resources? The shroud, with its mysterious images on the front and back, reveals a disturbing wealth of detail. Even though the image on the back is less clear and lacks the face and fingers, the flogging marks on the shoulders, back, buttocks and legs are incredibly detailed. These details hint at a hidden story waiting to be revealed. Allen highlighted that the stigmata on the shroud coincide with religious customs from the 10th and 11th centuries, which further increases the fascination with this relic. But as intriguing as it is, the shroud also challenges pathology experts who have confirmed the anatomical accuracy of the blood marks, something Allen did not explain. Research indicates that these spots were present before the image was formed, suggesting that they may have played a crucial role in this mystery. Allen chose not to address this issue, focusing instead on the hypothesis that if the shroud is not a painting, then it could have been created by a medieval photographic process. But if this technique existed, why aren't there other examples? This lack of evidence leaves more questions than answers, especially when considering the hypothesis that the shroud could be the burial cloak of Jesus of Nazareth. The formation of the image, possibly caused by an intense burst of ultraviolet radiation, leads some to speculate about a supernatural event, perhaps a resurrection. Scientists suggest the need for a new carbon dating test following strict protocols to clarify the mystery. If the results confirm the latest methods, it could indicate that the shroud is, in fact, Christ's robe, with evidence hinting at his resurrection. In 2008, Dr. John Jackson proposed an intriguing theory about the formation of the image, but like everything related to the Shroud of Turin, it only adds another layer to the enigma, leaving the mystery even deeper and without a definitive solution. According to John Jackson, the mystery of the Shroud of Turin could be linked to an intense explosion of ultraviolet radiation that, inexplicably, discolored the outer fibers of the fabric, creating a perfect negative 3-dimensional image of the body involved. This radiation, contrary to what one might expect, did not burn the tissue, but generated a detailed image of both the front and back. To date, science offers no natural explanation for this type of radiation, whether it comes from a decomposing body or the conditions of a tomb. This anomaly opens up the possibility of a supernatural origin, possibly associated with the resurrection of Jesus. While we cannot scientifically prove this hypothesis, as there is no way to test the supernatural, what we can do is eliminate all known natural causes, which leaves us with an intriguing question. The uniqueness of this phenomenon can be seen as evidence of something beyond traditional physics, perhaps divine intervention. Belief in the resurrection of Christ could gain new momentum in light of this more detailed understanding of the luminous phenomenon that appears in the image of the Shroud of Turin. Jackson suggests that after the blood dried on the shroud, the decomposing body would have emitted a brief, intense burst of ultraviolet radiation, causing dehydration and discoloration of the tissue on both sides. Furthermore, Jackson proposes that the body would have become mechanically transparent, emitting light uniformly from all three-dimensional points. This emission of light would have created the visible image of both the inside and outside of the hands, resulting in the double frontal image. However, the laws of physics that we know cannot explain how a decomposing body could emit such intense radiation or become uniformly transparent. Jackson's explanation remains the only one that attempts to solve these mysteries, but even it defies conventional physics and metaphysics. Under these conditions, it would be reasonable to consider that a different, non-physical cause could have interacted with the body, resulting in this burst of intense light. While science has its limitations and cannot prove a cause beyond physics, the idea that the Shroud of Turin is related to the resurrection of Jesus is fascinating and worthy of consideration. This phenomenon may point to something beyond our current understanding, a resurrection that, according to St. Paul, was not just a return to life, but a complete transformation into a glorious, powerful, spiritual body. The transformation of Jesus' body, suggested by the intense ultraviolet radiation recorded on the Shroud of Turin, leads us to consider something that goes beyond traditional science. This radiation, which may have marked the transition of Jesus' physical body to a glorified spiritual state, finds no explanation in known natural laws, but it aligns intriguingly with the accounts of St. Paul and the evangelists. The idea that the shroud could be an authentic relic of Jesus' resurrection gains strength when we look at the evidence. The hypothesis that the shroud belonged to someone other than Jesus seems increasingly unlikely. There is no evidence to support the theory that the shroud is a medieval forgery. The precision of the blood marks, which coagulated before the image was formed, is something a medieval forger could hardly replicate. Furthermore, the presence of pollen grains from ancient Palestine and coins, minted in 29 years after Christ, in the eyes of the shroud figure, represents a mystery impossible to be solved by a forger from the Middle Ages. The shroud's unique characteristics make it extremely unlikely that it is a human creation from any era. How could a medieval forger have used ultraviolet radiation to create such an accurate three-dimensional image? Or even, how could he have accurately replicated the proportions of the hands of a crucified body, both inside and outside? These questions leave little doubt that the Shroud of Turin is much more than a simple artifact. When we consider the authenticity of the story of Jesus, the Shroud of Turin stands out as one of the most remarkable pieces of evidence. It reveals clear signs of first-century Palestine, where Jesus lived and was crucified. The bloodstains, pollen grains, and coins in the eyes indicate an origin that aligns with biblical accounts. The shroud is also the only artifact that shows specific signs of the crown of thorns, flagellation, and the Roman spear that pierced the body, all consistent with Jesus' crucifixion. Furthermore, the mysteries surrounding the image on the shroud suggest a burst of ultraviolet radiation, reinforcing the idea that Jesus' body underwent a physical and spiritual transformation, as described by St. Paul. Given the context and evidence, it is quite reasonable to believe that the Shroud of Turin is indeed the cloth that wrapped Jesus Christ, making it a crucial piece in understanding the resurrection and the Christian faith. The Shroud of Turin, often associated with the burial of Jesus, not only bears markings that suggest crucifixion, but also hints at the possibility of a glorious resurrection. This fabric is considered by many to be tangible evidence of the events described in the Gospels, carefully preserved in Turin. It is believed that Joseph of Arimathea used this cloth to wrap the body of Jesus. Despite the passing of centuries, the aged fabric still displays a clear human image on both the front and back. If the marks on the shroud were indeed left by a body, it appears that it was placed face up on one half of the cloth, while the other half was folded over the head, covering the front. The shroud arrived in Turin in 1578, and since 1694 it has been kept in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist. Displayed only a few times a century, the shroud attracts millions of visitors eager to see images of the crucified man. The fabric is made from linen, with fibers as fine as 1/5 the thickness of a human hair. All four Gospels, including Luke's, mention Jesus' burial after the crucifixion. On the day of the resurrection, Luke reports that Peter found only the strips of linen, while John mentions both the strips and the cloth that covered Jesus' head, separated from the rest of the body. Many believe that this cloth could be the Shroud of Turin itself. If it really is the Holy Shroud, it could provide damning evidence about the authenticity of Christianity. However, the answer depends on historical, scientific, and biblical analyses. Carbon-14 dating, which placed the shroud between 1002 and 1400 AD, is questioned by many, opening up the possibility that the fabric predates the time of Christ. The Shroud of Turin unites science and faith in a unique way, showing that there can be harmony between them. The image he portrays makes the story of Christ's passion more palpable, especially for young people trying to understand what to believe. The concrete evidence present in the shroud helps make the biblical narrative more real and impactful. Jesus' suffering and resurrection, reflected in this artifact, continue to have a profound impact on the beliefs of many. The Vatican has made statements about the authenticity of the shroud, and in 1506, Pope Julius II formally approved a Mass dedicated to it, highlighting its religious and historical importance. The Holy Shroud, in which Jesus was wrapped after his crucifixion, is today preserved with great reverence in a silver reliquary. The Pope, in one of his speeches, mentioned a treatise written by his predecessor, Pope Sixtus V, which stated that the shroud showed the true blood and image of Jesus Christ. However, this statement has generated controversy, as there are other shrouds with similar impressions of the figure of Christ, which raises questions about the authenticity of the Shroud of Turin. Originally identified as a piece of linen provided by Joseph of Arimathea, the Shroud of Turin was accepted as authentic without much questioning until the end of the 19th century. In 1898, when the shroud was exposed to the public and allowed to be photographed, a surprising discovery was made. The image on the screen looked like a photographic negative. This detail revealed a human face more clearly than the screen itself, intriguing scientists and believers alike. Later, a scientist suggested to the Academy of Sciences that the imprint on the shroud could be the result of ammonia vapors released after a violent death. These vapors could have caused a reddish-brown stain on the screen, varying in intensity depending on the distance and type of fabric, creating a unique negative image, something impossible for any medieval forger to replicate. If you plan to visit Turin, be aware that the Shroud of Turin is kept in the Turin Cathedral, although the original fabric is not exposed to the public due to its fragility. It is protected by bulletproof glass and security cameras. However, you can see a replica of the shroud in the chapel where it is kept. The good news is that there is a possibility of seeing the real shroud in 2025 during the Jubilee year. The dates have not yet been confirmed, but the Vatican is expected to announce them soon. If you cannot attend the exhibition, the Turin Shroud Museum is an excellent alternative. There, you can explore the fascinating history and mysteries of the shroud through detailed exhibits. And if you like this content, subscribe to the channel and check out more videos to learn more about this intriguing artifact.